The clock struck 11:59 p.m., and in the stillness of her new home, Rachel's heart skipped a beat as the old landline phone began to ring, a sound she hadn't expected, and one she would come to dread. It was her first night in the house, a quaint suburban home she had bought after months of searching for the perfect place. The landline had come with the property, a bulky, beige relic perched on a corner table in the living room. She hadn't thought much of it, assuming it was disconnected. Curious, she picked up the receiver. "Hello?" Silence. Not even static. After a few seconds, the line went dead. She shrugged it off, blaming a crossed signal or a prank. But as she replaced the receiver, she glanced at the clock. Exactly midnight. The next night, at 11:59 p.m., the phone rang again. Rachel hesitated before answering. "Hello?" This time there was a faint hum of static, followed by a sound that made her skin crawl, a soft, high-pitched giggle. It was distant, like a child playing in another room, and then the line went dead again. Rachel felt a chill creep up her spine. She stared at the phone, unease settling in her chest. The house, already unfamiliar, now felt cold and unwelcoming. Determined to put the strange calls out of her mind, she contacted the phone company the next morning. After a long wait, the technician finally checked her account. "Ma'am," he said, "there's no active landline registered at your address. Are you sure you're not mistaken?" Her stomach dropped. "It's been ringing every night. Are you saying it's not connected?" "No records, no service," he confirmed. That night, Rachel unplugged the phone and left it on the floor. She convinced herself it was just a fluke, perhaps some leftover wiring from the previous owners. But at 11:59 p.m. it rang again. Her eyes snapped open, heart racing. She stared at the phone, still unplugged, as it vibrated with each shrill ring. Summoning her courage, she answered. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was distorted, like a broken recording. "Don't answer the door tomorrow." The line went dead. Rachel couldn't sleep that night. She replayed the voice over and over in her head. Who would say something like that? And how was the phone ringing without being connected? The following night, as the clock struck midnight, a loud knock echoed through her home. Rachel froze, clutching the blanket tighter around her. The knocks came again, heavy and deliberate. She crept to the front door, her breath shallow, peeking through the peephole. She saw nothing but darkness. The porch light was on, yet no one stood outside. She didn't open the door. The phone calls continued each night, and the warnings grew darker. The voice began whispering her name, recounting details from her life, the song she had played that afternoon, the dinner she'd eaten, and the names of her friends. On the sixth night, the voice delivered a final, chilling message. "Open the door and you'll be free. If you don't, we'll come inside anyway." Rachel barricaded herself in her bedroom that night. She dragged her dresser in front of the door and sat on the bed, clutching her phone, ready to call for help. As the clock struck midnight, the knocking returned, louder and more insistent. Shadows darted past her windows, and the air grew icy cold. Her bedroom lights flickered, and then silence. Rachel waited, her pulse pounding in her ears. After a few minutes, she finally gathered the courage to check. Stepping cautiously into the hallway, she saw it. Her front door stood wide open. Standing in the doorway was a figure cloaked in shadows. Its face was featureless, an empty void that seemed to pull the light from the room. Before Rachel could scream, the voice spoke again, but this time, it came from right behind her. "You should have answered the door." Rachel was never seen again. Days later, the house went back on the market, untouched. A new family moved in, unaware of the warnings etched faintly into the wood of the phone table. And on their first night, at exactly 11:59 p.m., the phone began to ring.